Hello humans! Today I wanted to talk about this guy right here. This is a Buck 425 mini buck. It's a pretty straightforward knife. They made these from 1987 until 2020. That is the range I was able to find them through catalogs and the like. Very simple. It's an injection mold handle. I found some places saying it was a material called Vilox, which is an injection molding material. It's got a 420 HC steel blade, and from factory they were 1 3/4 of an inch long. I'm not entirely sure how much this one's been sharpened away. I did get this one here secondhand. At some point I should get a new one of these, but yeah, 1 3/4 does still seem to be accurate. That's from the back of the scale to the tip of the blade too, so that's not quite like edge length because you've got this little ricasso kind of area going on, but it is what it is, you know? They made these in a whole bunch of different colors, greens, different shades of green, different oranges, peach, pink. I think there was blue ones, there was red ones. I just found a black one. Like I said, I got this secondhand at a swap meet, so I don't have a ton of its history. I don't have any boxes or anything like that for it, but it is still kind of a neat little knife. Very simple construction. It's not that dissimilar to like a scaled down version of the drop point 112s, except with plastic handles instead of the ebony that you typically see. There is a decent amount of detailing, and some of it's actually kind of nice. So I've been carrying this obviously on and off for a little bit. It's a weird knife to carry, and I'll get into why in just a little bit after I go over its design overall. You've got these speed holes back here. The ones in the handle don't really make that big of a difference. But for its intended purpose, which is kind of as a keychain knife, this back one's really helpful. And the blade's fairly short for the length of handle, but it does mean that this area is completely unused. So you can very easily put a ring on it or something like that. It also has this like texturing kind of a deal up near the front, which I actually found really nice for a pinch grip. A lot of the times with these smaller knives, you know, you're just doing something quick, and it can be really helpful to have a pinch grip like this so you can cut boxes from the side or just remove tape towards you, whatever it happens to be, right? Because it's very difficult to stab yourself if you're holding the knife like this. Like you have to be pretty twisted to poke yourself. You can poke your other hand, but to poke your torso, it's very difficult. Which is one of the reasons draw knives are safe, but that's a whole nother discussion. This does have fully pinned construction. However, it only has 2 pins, and as you can see, it's got a clamshell construction in the back. So it is originally 2 separate pieces. And she's got these 2 pins holding it in place. There is presumably the back spring is held captive in this area back here. Simple lockback design, nail neck. It would be nice if there was a nail neck on both sides, but unfortunately there isn't, and there's not tons of room to grab. So the nail neck is truly the way that you are going to be deploying this. Despite having a very short blade, the handle is a good amount longer, giving me at least a fairly comfortable 3-finger grip. Which, for such a small knife, is kind of handy. So, speaking of it being such a small knife, let's do some size comparisons real quick. Here it is next to a Wee Knives Banter and a Civivi Chevalier. As you can see, it is quite a bit smaller than either. And here it is next to a Buck 110 and a Zippo lighter. As you can see, it is most similar in size to a Zippo lighter. It's also very thin. Put stuff back in the wrong spot, but that's fine. It's a little bit over half the thickness of the Zippo. So it is a very slim knife. It fits very easily in a 5th pocket, which is how I carried it. So let's get into my experiences real quick. I found this to be a very slicey knife. It has a hollow grind, so despite being a fairly short knife, and it does have a very thin blade stock, but despite being not a very tall blade, the hollow grind led to it being very slicey. And it having this continuous arch across the spine made it very easy for puncturing and cutting tasks, which is kind of what this is for, right? This is for cutting tape off packages, opening up cardboard boxes, food containers, what have you, right? Little lightweight tasks. And to that end, it did fairly well. I'm not used to having knives this small be locking. I know there are some. Spyderco has a series, I believe the Man Bug is a locking knife in a very similar size class, and I do have other knives that are this small and locking, but they're not very common. Typically what you see with a knife in this size range is something more like these. So this is the Spyderco Bug, which is actually, I believe it is the smallest folding knife that I own. I need to double check that, but I'm fairly certain it is the smallest folding knife that I own. It typically lives on my truck key for my welding rig. And then, so this one's on my house key. This is a Victorinox, I don't want to put that somewhere where it's in the camera. This is a Victorinox Classic X A-Lox. Very simple knife, very small blade. To be honest, I don't use the blade all that often on this. It's mostly just for like cutting string and the like. I mostly use the nail file and the scissors. You also have on my car key, this right here, which is my trim trio. I had this on several weeks ago now, but I actually really like this knife. And it lives on my car key, and it's very, very similarly just a little personal care cleaning kind of a dealio. So, but typically what you see is non-locking knives in this size range, which is what I intended to be showing off there. So this is a little bit unique in that regard. That being said, it's a little bit, I don't really like it on a keychain. It's a bit big for a keychain knife. I don't have just a random key that I can show off, do I? Not really, okay. So here it is next to like a mailbox key, for example, and it's significantly larger than most keys. This key's on a carabiner, and even then it picks up more pocket presence. Even then it takes up more pocket presence than most keys do, which in my opinion is a bit of a detriment to a keychain knife. I want it to be very small. I want it to fit very easily on my keychain, and this doesn't necessarily do that. That being said, I think for a lot of people you don't need much more of a knife than this, right? Day-to-day tasks tend to be very lightweight and easy, and something like this, which is extremely easy to carry, extremely lightweight, very small, very manageable, and non-threatening. And the non-threatening part is very essential because a lot of people work in office environments. A lot of people work in not strictly non-permissive environments, but in environments where you don't necessarily want to be brandishing anything that looks like it could be a weapon. And this very much does not look like that, but it still locks out. It still is very secure. You get a 3-fingered, fairly solid grip. And because the blade is so small compared to the handle, this is a very non-threatening looking object, which I think is hugely to its benefit. I know it'll fit in pretty much any woman's pocket because it fits in my 5th pocket, which, fun fact, is for watches originally, when it was designed for workers, but that's neither here nor there. Very small, very easy to touch up. 420 HC is not the most premium blade steel by any stretch of the imagination, but for day-to-day stuff, I mean, if you're just cutting up like cardboard or whatever it is, right, and this is even plastic-backed cardboard, it'll make short work of it. It's not super sharp, but it does make short work of any lightweight cutting tasks. I don't want to just leave my garbage everywhere. So to that end, it does do everything you need it to do as sort of a smaller knife. It's easy to touch up, it's easy to maintain, it's easy to carry. I don't necessarily understand why they took it out of production, to be honest. I think that as sort of an entry-level of the buck knives, this is a very, very suitable addition to a collection. It's very small, it's very inexpensive, it's very inoffensive, which means that, you know, like, it's not going to upset anybody, nobody's going to be scared of it or anything like that. It makes it very easy to carry for people who don't typically carry a knife. I think that it's a really suitable option, and despite sometimes wanting a larger knife for some tasks, there was never any tasks throughout my day that I felt like I was incapable of doing because I had such a small blade. It worked fine. Wasn't amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but it did work fine. And that's kind of my overarching thought on this. It's fine. It does everything you need it to do. It locks out securely. It's small enough to fit in a fifth pocket, which means that it's very easy to carry and easy to use. The biggest thing that I would like is the nail nick on both sides. But even that's not a huge deal by any stretch of the imagination, right? Like, this is perfectly fine. How thin is the blade? I didn't do that. That being said, you're not going to be able to disassemble it, so you're not going to be able to clean it out super effectively. I typically use a pocket knife to open up, like when I have an orange during the day. I'll use it just to peel the orange because it's easier than scraping at it with my nails all the time. And it worked to do that just fine. Like, there was nothing throughout my day that I ever felt like I needed a larger knife necessarily. Definitely wanted, but not needed. 78 thousandths of an inch. And with a hollow grind too. So despite not having a very tall blade, at 78 thousandths, I mean, that's pretty slicey in and of its own right. So yeah, I liked it. As an entry-level knife, it's something maybe you give to a kid or somebody who works in an office environment, doesn't need a big knife very often, but could use one just for small stuff around the day. I think this is a very suitable option. It's slightly more dedicated and more useful than a lot of keychain knives that I see, but it is a little bit bigger than a keychain knife. I think that if I were to design one, the biggest thing that I would probably want to change about it is make this, and I don't know if this is just age having worn it down, but I would like a little bit more traction here, a little bit more feeling. It's fine. It's a useful spot to have some texturing just for grip and stuff like that. And I'd want the second nail nick. Those are the only two things I think I would really want to change about it. It does look a little funny with the relatively short blade to handle ratio, but I mean, for what it is, I think this is a very suitable object. I found this one here for $7.50 at a swap meet, so they're not particularly expensive. They're more expensive on eBay for some reason, but eBay is that way. There should be a lot of them around. Like I said, they were in production for like 35 years. So there should be a lot of them floating around. There's lots of different colors, which I think is super cool. Camo ones, green, blue, pink, red, orange, peach, whatever you may want to have, honestly. There's a bunch of limited editions floating out there of this knife. I think that as part of a buck collection, this is definitely worth picking up, and that is mostly what I got it for, because I do collect buck knives. So, super cool little piece, out of production now, but if you see one, worth picking up. Stay safe and have fun out there. Peace.